Okay, welcome everybody, people in the chat. Thanks for your patience, doing some standby, hangout, and whatnot. Remember, we have that music and all that jazz, but we have a fantastic special guest with us today. Without further ado, let's bring on our dear comrade, queer POTUS or queer POTUS, on screen. Say hi. Tell us about what you do. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm I work at the World Bank and I'm a policy consultant. No, I'm just kidding. I do live in Washington. I do live in Washington, D.C., so I interact with a lot of that in my daily life. But I
Like
am
like
a
white
yeah.
men in suits.
Well, it can get pretty diverse, to be honest. But yes, that's the vibe for sure. But I'm actually a tour guide in Washington, D.C. So I take people around to different sites in this city, and I work at a few museums. And I have a little bit of a different uh, political. So,
Sorry, I think the internet did a
can
little
you
bit
hear
of
me?
fart. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess the famous room when there's very bad internet, it happened.
Okay. So yeah, the probably can move to a different room or to the router.
No worries.
Because I've been having trouble with it lately a lot. Okay. So yeah, tour guide in Washington D.C. And as I said, I have a little bit different aim than your average tour guide. So I guess I'm kind of slowly morphing into comrade tour guide or something.
There you go. That's the
Uh,
drill.
the the insurgent tour guide, I guess you could say.
Right on.
Um, Nobody knows they don't know they've been indoctrinated, but they're being indoctrinated.
And that, my
Yeah.
my fellow leftists, that is called praxis.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because I get visitors from all over the political spectrum, um, but mostly I get white liberals
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
good.
Trumper like working class or you know lower class Trump type, the type of people Trump would target. A lot of them
You're
are Trumpers too.
the
So yeah,
liberal
that's the
whisperer.
main
The
right.
liberal whisperer. You whisper to those liberals and radicalize them.
It's more like you whisper to them and you don't radicalize them. You just make them go, "Ooh, I learned so much good stuff about history. I'm so good now. I learned about I work at an Abraham Lincoln house, and it's like we talk about slavery and that story, and like they usually leave the tour going, ooh, I am such a good person because I went on a tour about how bad slavery was,
Yeah, I hear you. They're very resilient, those motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the Trumper type visitors usually feel that sometimes, they're like, oh, don't put America down, and so you have to contend with that with the Trumper visitors.
Oh, that sucks. That
Yeah.
sucks. What a chore sometimes.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely a
But
chore.
but again, you got to fight the good fight, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
For
hear you.
sure.
I hear you. So for all the people in the chat, are you receiving everything all right? Is everything good? All is good. I hear Rendis said you're frozen. Are we frozen now? Did that fridge shut down? Is the whatever is left from the summer on the northern hemisphere trying to get us there? Give me some people. All good. All good. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, Talkerna, thank you very, very much for that. Okay, so we were going to talk a little bit about the U.S. election, right?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about it. So how hard are you riding for Biden? Are you in the front seat with your hands up in the air waving, or are you buckled up tightly, holding on for dear life, praying it doesn't crash?
I would say that my hands are waving in the air indeed, but the only finger you see is the middle one. That would be
Pointed at the driver.
basically.
I've been making a lot of riding with Biden jokes lately because like I just find political cringe is like so great, and Biden does so much great cringy stuff, and I highlight that stuff on social media, and people say, they get angry because it helps Trump, and I'm kind of like, yeah, I feel like if you're riding with Biden, the last thing you want to do is upset the driver, right? Because you
Right on.
you want to,
Right on.
so
You may derail very fast, right? You may hit
yeah,
that curb before you know it.
exactly. So you get a lot of the feeling that people are just kind of like in that car with Biden, and they're just like, oh dear God, please let this car pass the finish line.
It's like the bus smells way too much like puke, but you need to get there because the other bus takes you to hell.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not gonna pretend it doesn't smell like puke. I mean, you're still gonna be
Exactly.
like, oh, that stinks. Like, so.
Exactly. Explain to us Europeans what happened. What's the context of this crazy ass United States electoral process? What went wrong there? What's going on? So we got to this point.
Well, I guess I could start with the first election of George Washington in 1788.
Right on.
So in my readings about what the presidency actually is, I feel that the presidency was meant to be, and actually a much more subdued office than it ended up being. I feel that even the name president suggests that the person elected to this office would simply preside over the functions of government.
Mm-hmm.
And by virtue of being a single person, be available to make quick decisions that can't wait for congressional deliberation.
Right on.
Right. So let's say you have one state that wants to secede, right? So you have a president who can quickly just raise troops immediately and send them over to put down the insurrection. And you don't have to wait for Congress to like argue and decide. Okay, by the time they've decided, the insurrection has succeeded, and the state is now the country of Pennsylvania is now what you're left with. So that was kind of the simple solution that they came up with to that was an executive. And really, we know the story over time. That position became much more central to how people engaged in politics. And my feeling today is that people are too obsessed with that office. And it's a shame that the office turned into a head of state position because it was kind of meant to be the antidote to having a head of state. So now we live in a time when everybody in the country is completely enveloped by this question of like, who is the president? And their entire political life is invested in who the president is or is not.
Yeah.
So
they kind of have too much power, right?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, right? Okay.
Yeah.
It explains a lot. Keep going.
For
Sorry.
sure. Yeah, I mean, and we can list each president, of our lifetimes and talk about them, launching invasions of one country or another without a congressional approval. And it's not a good record, and nobody's proposing any kind of solution to this problem. It's just people still live in that world where the president, it just really matters and it's really important. I mean, demonstrably it is, but it ought not to be, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
along with the president goes like most of the parliament is elected at the same time, or do they renew it, or
It's kind of broken up.
all right.
So you have congressional and senatorial elections in every like 2 years, and their different seats are available at different times.
Oh, that's
Um,
why the midterm thing happens, right?
yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Makes
So
sense.
for in a case of like in a case of a presidency, like an 8-year presidency, your goal is to get elected and get a majority of both houses, so that you as president are like unimpeded in pursuing your agenda. And that's not really been something that it happens. I mean, it happened with Trump, but then usually in the middle of your presidency, after people have complained about you nonstop for 2 years, there's a lot of momentum to elect the other party into the houses, and so you get a Republican president. Sometime in the midterms, they're likely to experience losing one or both houses.
Mm-hmm.
And Clinton experienced it, Reagan experienced it, the Obama and Trump and George Bush.
Right on. They're right
Yeah.
on. I mean, at least that's the famous checks and balances that everybody likes to talk about so much. But to what extent do they matter, right? Because I also heard about them lobbies and whatnot, right?
Right. Oh, yes. The It's interesting because the lobbying, the origin of that word is actually quite interesting. There's a hotel in Washington D.C. called the Willard, and it was kind of the hotel where people would stay. Presidents would stay there, or I should say, presidents elect would stay there before they moved into the White House. And during the administration of Ulysses Grant, which was the 1860s and 70s, really the birth of American capitalism as we know it today, it took place during Grant's administration. And shit, I lost the thread. What was the question?
About the
Lobbying.
origin of the word lobby, right?
Lobbying.
Because they met in the
So
lobby of that hotel, probably, right?
yes, yes, they would all hang out in the lobby of the hotel because that's where Ulysses Grant would go, and he'd smoke big cigars, and then all these railroad men and steel people and whoever had any kind of like industrial interests and needed government money to like increase their capital and just like expand, they would just whisper in Grant's ear in this lobby, and Grant would decide what to do. And that's why his administration is considered the most corrupt administration of all time by historians.
because
Yeah,
because everybody in the lobby was harassing him, like, yeah, give me this, give me that.
yeah.
We'll give you some cash, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yum yum, some good money.
Yeah,
Oh damn it! Oh damn it!
yeah,
That's where it comes from. That's a good one. That's a very good
sure.
one.
And also, it's like, hey, if you fund my project, I'll fund your campaign, or if you fund my project, it'll be this big glory piece that you can go out on the campaign trail and give speeches about how you're the reason that the railroad was built in Kansas or whatever, and you'll get Kansas's vote.
Right. And now we got
Yeah.
the super PACs and everything. You don't need a lobby for that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we have this idea of democracy that we're democracy, and it's something that like Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War said the reason the North has to win the Civil War is to prove that democracy can exist. And then after Lincoln, it was we have to fight in Europe during World War I and II to save democracy. And then it was we have to fight in Vietnam to promote democracy. And then, but we don't
Promote.
actually have democracy. We don't
Right.
have democracy, actually. So we have
Yeah.
representative government.
I
Yeah.
always say, democracy is what, Public Enemy was singing it best, power to the people. That's democracy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do you think in terms of like, when we think of democracy, we think of the vote, and the Democrats are basing their entire convention was based on go vote. Like Obama came out and was like, I know things are going wrong, and I know that the economy is crashing, and I know that this and that and that. And you're like, yeah, say it, Obama, say it. Like, I'm sorry, and we got to do something new. Say it. And Obama's like, so you got to vote. And it was just like, okay, that's it. Just vote. So where does democracy actually exist? You know, how
May-
do you get democracy? Is it
maybe
by just
maybe that
vote?
comes from a place where maybe they did some research or something, like and figure out that most people were lazy or something. I don't know.
Mm.
I'm just imagining things. This is conjecture, right? But could it be something like that? Like if we get enough people to vote, we may have a chance.
It, it, you're right that those words translate to that thought, but I feel like they're being at least perceived as just simply scolding the voting public as the like point of blame. And that's how it's at least being perceived, right? Like you have Obama up here who's responsible for a lot of the problems that you're experiencing, out admitting that these problems exist, and then he doesn't give you that sweet release of being like, and I'm sorry for everything I did, and it's time to actually have real change and
Yeah, of
healthcare
course,
for all
no.
and all that stuff. He just says vote.
Yeah, maybe he's not even like working for the Democratic Party per se, but for the say electoral system.
Mm-hmm.
That was a message for the electoral system. Please validate us. We want to keep things in business, no matter who gets elected.
Yeah,
Like, please
absolutely.
don't do a revolution. Just vote, okay?
Oh, it's
Don't get disillusioned. Don't get disenchanted with us. I know we're doing a shit job, but for us, it's working like like a charm. So
right. Yeah. I mean, it's like the social democrats kind of that idea of like, you're right. It is kind of a big plea. You have the Democrats pleading, please don't do revolution. Please make the Black Lives Matter thing more like basic, like more normie. And, we promise that you'll have like cool people in the White House who may or may not change their mind at some point about those progressive things you want done. And then the Republicans are saying just like they're communist radicals. And it puts the Democrats in this position where they're like, if we want to win as and still be the Democratic Party that we are, we have to like disavow everything that's associated with this socialism movement and this Black Lives, or we have to do Black Lives Matter in a very symbolic, like normie way and try
right.
to be like, but we're against all the looters. Don't worry.
Do you think it has a lot to do with McCarthyism and all that, cultural war that's been raging in the United States for so long?
Yeah, well, I mean, during FDR, we had like a kind of a back and forth going with the Soviet Union, and a lot of the people who served FDR in the State Department, for example, they had communications with Stalin's government all the time, and they exchanged information. And then when the war ended, like the Republicans and some of the Democrats, even like Joe McCarthy, for example, came in and just like purged all like a Stalinist purge. They purged every person who during the war, when we were allied with Russia, had shared secrets with the Russians. Because obviously you would share secrets with your ally in a war. But they like chased them out. They denounced them as communists. And of course, it's a way to get a job, right? You kick
Yep.
somebody out, denounce, you can get what they get.
You
So
can
they
get
always
your
pointed to
people in,
Soviet.
right?
Yeah. And so obviously like that was a problem in the Soviet Union, but they point to the Soviet Union like, look at the denunciations, but we had these same culture, this cancel culture, I guess, if you will,
Yeah,
going on
devs.
here. Yeah.
But I don't know up to what point the word purge is a little bit demonized, like the word say propaganda, right? Everybody does propaganda and everybody purges. You kick someone out of the party, you're purging the party, right? Or kick someone out of your organization or your book club, because they're not having attitudes that go with your book club, and you're
Right.
purging someone from there. It's not you're not killing them or sending them to this paradigmatic Siberia, from the
Right.
from the fantasy of the McCarthyan bullshit, right?
Right. But I could say purge, like if I'm talking about if I'm trying to discuss something that happened like 1926 Stalin's, I think it's 26, his first what are called purges, right? Now,
Hmm.
if I call them purges, that does put the foot on the scale immediately
Yeah,
and doesn't allow us to like kind of really read into the history of what happened. But if I don't call them purges, there's a reputational, cost
of
associated with that,
course,
right?
of course, of course, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were purges. I
Yeah.
mean, fair and square,
Were
done
they?
and done.
Right, yeah. And I have a lot of socialist friends, lefty friends who try to like minimize a lot of things in the Soviet Union to try to do propaganda. I feel like that's kind of similar to what the riding with Biden people are doing with Joe. It's like we can be honest. And then I have other friends who are more like in the Maoist orient, and they're like not shy at all about talking about the rough stuff that happened in China and Russia, and they're just still on board.
Yeah, and in a way, we could say like the Democratic Party's primary process was fairly undemocratic, right?
Oh, yes, it normally is. I mean, you have a weird what would I say here? You have this dilemma with the political convention because you have an expectation that it will be democratic, but you also have the fact that the political convention was not created to be democratic. Um, or at least it wasn't created to be a popular vote oriented thing. What the convention was supposed to be was a group of like a large group of delegates representing certain candidates or certain interests would all gather at a appointed time, and then they would negotiate, they would cajole, they would tug. You wouldn't know who was going to be the nominee when the convention was happening. And then the convention would end, and all of a sudden you'd find out James K. Polk is our nominee. And everybody would go, who? Who's that? And then, it'd be like, oh shit, we have to actually get posters and shit made of this guy now as quickly as possible to let everybody know who James K. Polk is. And then, he ended up winning, but he was a dark horse candidate that nobody had ever heard of. And he went to the convention to be vice president, hoping to be vice president. And he ended up, the
The
convention was
candidate.
crazy 3 day long. Yeah, pulling this, that, and then he became the nominee. So there's really not supposed to be I think the problem there is that the Democrats and the Republicans try to make a show that their convention is some sort of like democratic institution, that it's like part of the grassroots of democracy. But it's not, and it's demonstrably not. So when it fails, which it always does, everyone's just so pissed off. I think it would be much more beneficial for us to take a more realistic approach to like understanding what a convention is, and not to rely solely on like building a grassroots movement to win the convention, but to like, I don't even know what, just like get dirty and strategize the fuck out of these, centrists and get them out.
Yeah,
Purge them.
purge them. Yeah, in a right way, in a good way.
Yeah.
Purge the centrist. I mean, they're not even centrist anymore. I would say, from a guy seeing things from Europe, leftists from Europe, I would say the Democratic Party in the United States is fairly right wing.
Well, I feel like there's this new center developing, and you and with guys like Stefan Molyneux and anyway, they're the new center.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Center.
I guess like Hitler was the center when he was, yeah, during the Nazi regime, technically. But yeah, no, actually, I'm working on a video right now that's taking a lot longer than I expected. It's why I haven't had much output recently. And it's called War on Workers, A Bipartisan Tale.
Hmm.
And it goes through Reagan and Clinton and shows you how both of them were on the same free trade, NAFTA, like union busting, like page, even though they were in different parties. And so, you had basically Ronald Reagan, who appealed to cultural conservatives, but promised to make America great again through cutting taxes, cutting regulations, cutting social programs, and spending heavily on the military budget to make America like what it once was during World War II, after World War II.
Yeah.
He was a huge FDR fan. Weird, because he killed the New Deal. But Clinton, he was like, when he ran, he was like, we're sick of all these Reaganomics and these right-wing policies. Vote for me and I'll revive education so that like families can have a chance, working families can have a chance, the forgotten middle class, all this stuff. And so they vote for Clinton, and Clinton just basically does a lot of the same shit that Reagan does. He even does it a little bit better in some instances than Reagan does. And then he signs NAFTA, which, commits, in theory, it's a good idea for trade barriers and borders not to exist, to be meeting places instead of dividing lines, as Reagan says. But the question in the back of your mind always is, behind all this rhetoric, is this really just about the United States exploiting other countries and depriving its working population of a decent job and a chance to, have benefits and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the globalization that everybody's been talking about. That says, I mean, right wing or extreme right wing. In the case of, let's say, these two parties from the United States that have like a chance at winning the election because of the way the electoral system is in the United States, right?
Yeah.
They both play for the same team, which is capitalism, and in this case, deregulated capitalism. Let's say the neoliberal doctrine that's been followed like a religion from the 1970s, from the School of Chicago, the Chicago School of Economics, and the whole Milton Friedman whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Which is more a religion than actual economics. Like, there's nothing scientific about it. Like, the market with the invisible hand of the market will come and grab you by the P word.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing about the invisible hand is there's like a part of the invisible hand that I like identify with, in the sense that, we used to live in feudal societies with like this, with the state controlling everything. And like the concept of like, hey, let's remove the state to some degree so that the invisible hand of just like how people get shit done can happen, and that's a libertarian concept. But of course, the description of it as an invisible hand implies that it like moves in some like like good direction, right?
Right.
And it is creepy for sure. Like that it's controlled, that it's like the invisible hand guides us where we need to go. And I like the idea of removing the state. I like that was the goal, but I think that there is a certain amount of like, you should let people get shit done. You don't have to be so heavy-handedly involved in people's lives, but I mean, to have that image, yeah.
What fucks me in the head is that there was no actual research done, to support this. It was just a set of beliefs. Like, let me show you my invisible hand there. Right? It's like, motherfucker, just tucked my arm into the, But yeah, it's a metaphor. It's a way of speaking, right? Like it was not based on any economical research. Nobody did their homework. They just said it was like that. It was convenient for the motherfuckers who were, pushing this imperialist agenda at the beginning. And then it's like an empire that is going outside, to the outside borders. And when they're done extracting from the outside, when they're done with Chile, when they're done with South Africa, when they're done with Poland, they're done with everyone else, they look at the inside of their own borders and go like, okay, let's see what we can do here, right?
Yeah.
And they're extracting like addicts, them motherfuckers, and then they don't really think. They don't have a plan. They just I would say all of this chaos, all of this bullshit is not about planning. They were like my impression is that it's like these economists, or quote unquote economists, are more
Hmm.
like very determined, very sure of themselves, absolute, absolute useless people
Yeah,
who are
for
making
sure.
a mess and making a profit in the way, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's an idea.
No, you're right. And if you look at, if you've read A Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, uh, it's a fascinating text, and there's a lot of truths in it. But it's very much kind of like in the Jordan Peterson sense, where it's like he says things you're like, okay, that makes sense there. Okay, yeah, sometimes you got to clean your room, Bucko. Like, yeah, sure, but like ultimately you're like, where's the foundational like research behind this? Where's like, what are you actually studying? Are you just pulling this out of your ass? And that's what you get with Smith to a degree. And you realize it because then you go read Capital and you see that he's has like factory inspectors records, and he's got stories from all these different factories, and he's got the charts and examples, like just pages of stories of how people live and survive as workers in like the nightmare capitalism of his day. And you see that, like, what you really see the difference between a person who's engaging in economics as basically a masturbatory aid for the status quo of his society, and a person who's engaging in real economic research and really talking about what's going on.
Right on. My rule of thumb is
Yeah.
like don't trust anyone who wears a suit and who looks super clean. Never trust those motherfuckers. They're up to get you.
Mr. Anderson.
Right on, Mr.
Yeah.
Anderson. Definitely,
Yeah.
they're agents. They're
Yeah.
agents all the way. There was a couple of comments here that are really,
Yeah.
really cool. Like I took an American politics, like from Tepatepec. I took an American politics class in my university, and the professor pushed the idea that the American people were too lazy and stupid to vote because I'm pretty sure it's because they aren't allowed to be informed. It sounds a little bit paternalistic, like the American people
Mm.
are just stupid. I don't think that's true. You think the American, like, I think the people in the United States, there's incredibly valuable, amazing people there. I'm gonna go back to what I said before. En todas partes cuecen habas. They're baking beans all over the place because
Hmm.
uh, I would say there's amazing people in the United States and shitty people in the United States, like everywhere else. I don't think
Well,
that
I
it's a
I think there's
generalization that helps, right?
yeah. Well, I think there's great people in the United States, but I think that in order to be an American, you have to like engage in the devil's bargain. Like just to be alive in America, you have to make the deal with the devil all the time.
Right on. I hear you. Also, I think you're very, subjected to a ton of very advanced propaganda all the time. You're
Oh yeah,
subjected to the latest, best techniques and the most cutting edge of manipulation. And
absolutely. And the goal is, to create two camps. To have one media that zeroes in on like liberals and people who liked George Bush and all that kind of stuff, and you have another media to zoom in on like the Trump and the conservative and the super like Trumpy like oriented people. So it has the appearance of debate.
right on,
Um, you know,
right on.
the
Yeah,
illusion
yeah.
of choice. Yeah,
Different
the illusion
talking
of
points
choice.
for different people who are in different places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. And it's like the independent media that you see on YouTube and stuff has been really good at pointing out, how you'll hear the right wing talking point in the left wing in the liberal language on MSNBC, and then you'll hear basically the same talking point in the conservative language on the AM radio show or the Fox News show, and you'll see like they're warmongering on MSNBC all the time.
Yeah, I hear you there. I hear you
Right.
there. Like there, because maybe both of them are defending the same system, which is capitalism, which is kind of what's causing all the problems, right? And all the problems for us, and all the good business for them.
Right.
And I hate to put terms in the us versus them type of thing, but and all the thing we are at war and the fear mongering and bullshit, right? But at some point,
Yeah.
we actually are at war. We've been at war for a long time. It's just that we haven't been fighting it. They have been throwing everything they have at us,
Yeah.
and we've been taking the punches like brave, one after the other,
Right.
collectively. So maybe it's time to, I don't know, strike back and say, hey, you have no power, right? You have no power in us, and we're gonna move on from your shit and do some proper stuff, right?
It's one of the reasons why I would encourage people to at least, and I'm not saying who I'm voting for, but I think it's worth considering looking at some third party candidates. I don't have a specific one in mind, but like just to, if you feel like you live in a state that's going to go Republican or Democrat for sure, and like I live in Washington D.C., it's gone Democrat every election since it's had electoral votes. So since 1961, and last election, I think it went 92 for Hillary. So I don't have to vote for Trump or Biden. It won't change the result at all. So I am looking now to see who's on the third. But don't kid yourself. You're still just like one vote. You're a drop in the bucket. And for the price of getting the Green Party like 1% of the vote, everyone's just gonna like laugh at you and say you're all a bunch of cranks. So I don't see how it helps.
Yeah, that's a quite interesting part of the politics in the
Mm-hmm.
United States.
Right.
I'm gonna try not to call it America, because for me America is the whole continent, right? Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Well, it's even
That's a red line
problematic.
for me.
It's even problematic to say that because America was named after a slave trader from Italy named Amerigo Vespucci.
Amerigo Vespuccio,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so it's not really, I mean, the continent was something else before it was even America. So it's like even you can't actually, and this is why I say being American makes you you're making a deal with the devil every day, even just to be an American. And I mean that not just in the United States, because your presence here came at the cost of human lives, and you know your continued presence here
Tell,
costs human lives.
tell me about it. I'm a Spaniard.
Well,
Yeah.
it's your fault that we became a global empire because
Right on. I would say,
Spain's fault.
as I am a poor Spaniard from a working
Uh-huh.
class family, I would say that the same people who screwed up my ancestors by making them slave
Yeah.
in farms in the 15th century are the same people who screwed up the native peoples in what we now know as America. Was it Turtle Island, right?
Turtle Island. I don't know much about Turtle Island.
I
You
think
might have
that's
to
that's
enlighten
one of
me.
the native denominations of the continent, if I'm not
Is
mistaken.
it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm talking out of off the cuff, but I heard
Okay.
something around those lights.
I know about so the like transfer the beginning of American empire, which is a ridiculous formulation because our empire began the moment we became a country because we acquired land immediate like 5 years after we became a country, we acquired a huge chunk of land and then we took over the continent. But um, the moment we actually went off continent and started going beyond, it had to do with Spain because Spain was controlling Cuba at the turn of the century and the Philippines.
Right on.
And when we fought a war against Spain in Cuba, ostensibly to help the Cuban people overthrow the oppressive Spanish regime, which was admittedly very repressive. And there was a right wing government in Spain at the time that was really trying to make Spain great again at a time of decline.
Yep.
And the U.S. was on the ascendancy and took advantage of the situation and not only grabbed Cuba, but grabbed, I think, Guam and the Philippines from Spain. And then we were managing the Philippines all the way until 1946. And that management included a war that took very similar to the Iraq War happened in the Philippines with the U.S.
Yeah, and
So
the Tagalog people, they push through like the
yeah,
brave, awesome people they are.
yeah. So yeah, the Philippines, there was a strong resistance movement. Um, they did get their independence, but I think that by the time they got their independence, they were already so entrenched in trade with the United States that they didn't have really full independence. And so that's why a lot of the problems still persist out there.
I would put it on the royal families. We have the terrible Bourbons that we're trying to get rid of them right now, and it's being a pain in the ass, man.
Do you still have bourbons in the?
Oh yeah, Felipe
Really?
the sixth, I think is right now. Felipe the sixth.
How does that work? Because you had Franco for a while, and there was no king at that point in time.
Yeah,
right?
we had the Second Spanish Republic that was declared in 1931. It lasted all the way until 1937. But in 1936 there was the coup d'état that ended with a quote unquote civil war. I don't like to call it civil war. I like to say it's an extermination war carried on by the fascist Spanish fascist with North African mercenaries.
Yes.
And the aid of Hitler and Mussolini, who were bringing troops and technology and bombed the shit out of our ancestors. And, after that, we had like 40 years of Franco dictatorship, which was absolute shit. But Franco appointed Juan Carlos de Borbón, the former king, the one that's being that had to flee right now to the Arab Emirates because of a case of corruption, because of commissions.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And his son is in charge right now. I mean, head of state. Supposedly, he's like a joke, like a diplomatic figure, but he's still, head of the army. And it really sucks. People are really fed up with the monarchy because it was brought about. It was restored once again by Franco, and the Bourbons. They have a terrible history, of corruption and ultra, capitalism before capitalism. If you know what I'm saying, extraction, politics,
mercantilism.
Yeah. It was,
but also primitive accumulation.
Yeah. It was incredibly shitty. But yeah, going back to the United States.
No, you getting self-conscious?
No, it's just it's. I feel like we're going
can't just
off
hate
topic.
on the Yankees.
I feel like I'm getting fuck the king, fuck the royal family, fuck them really good. Spain is a naturally anarchist country, and it should be an anarchist country. Again, there you go. I'm gonna go with the right-wing rhetoric. Make Spain anarchist again.
I'll wear that hat.
The good old days, of Ruti, Ascaso, Cipriano Mera. But it ain't gonna happen anytime soon. We're deep in capitalism, very entrenched, and our media is absolute shit. No, Spain is a shithole by its own right.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, the Spain stream. I'm gonna link it up for Rendis in the chat. We got some really good stuff. Like I think maybe the invisible hand is invisible because it doesn't exist, and absolutely, and there's no difference between domination by state institutions and private institutions. I would say a teeny tiny bit. Like it depends on the state, but
don't you feel?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Don't you feel that the invisible hand is almost like I always think of Adam Smith as like Newton, Isaac Newton of economics, because he was trying to present an ordered vision, right? He's trying to present he's trying to explain how it all works in a way that like seems to be like guided in some way, that's ordered, that makes sense. And so like instead of putting a god in it, he puts an invisible hand, and that like, he's just in a sense he's describing accurately what's going on, but he's doing it in that Newtonian way where it has to be perfectly ordered.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Karl Marx, of course, in that metaphor is Kepler, because Johannes Kepler was a fucking badass, and he was like, "This planets don't turn in a circle. What are you, fucking nuts? It's an ellipse. Come on."
Yeah. I mean, it's a product of their time. Everything had to be perfect and everything, and then when you go down to the ground, and go back down to what's going on, and everything is incredibly complex and chaotic, and there's a lot of interdependencies that the big theory texts don't account for, that we need to keep our eyes open all the time and say, oh yeah, okay, initially this, but check this other thing out. How do we
Right.
fix it? You got to do it all the time. It's I think it was the dialectical process that says that everything changes all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
everything has been changing a lot all the time for a long while. So we need to take that into account as well. There's no
Yeah.
model. There's no model. No one size fits all solution. Not even interpretation of reality
Well,
itself, right?
Smith's Wealth of Nations came out in 1776, and like I think there was like the Industrial Revolution started like the next year or something.
Yeah, I guess.
And so it was like his thing was like not even relevant immediately. Like it was immediately irrelevant by like what came, but like people applied what he said to what was happening in the Industrial Revolution to to naturalize it, I think, to try to say, like, people were looking around and going, machines, factories, all this modernization. Oh my God, like what's happening? Humans are like doing something unnatural. And like the point of the classical political economists was to say, no, this is our nature, just like Darwin shows us that we evolved. Like we have now evolved into, see, like Darwin's problem too is like the way he wrote uh, his discoveries are amazing, but the way he framed them was very much in this sort of like, we are evolving towards something. Like we like the bird grows the beak because it's better for getting a nut, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's not actually
That's not
completely
how
how evolution
evolution
works.
works.
It's yeah, like the environmental conditions, the material conditions of life dictate how whatever innovations have to be made.
Yeah.
It's not like some plan that's like this, you're constantly ascending. And so that's why survival of the fittest, and why Darwin's ideas influenced eugenics and things like that, because of the way he framed them. It doesn't discredit his discoveries though of
Right.
evolution,
Right.
but it's the wrong message, and it's very much linked with I feel like the message of Darwin is very much like influenced by capitalistic thinking, by classical political economy thinking.
Yeah, it's like when you see those documentaries talking about animals, when you're snoozing off and there's nothing else on TV, and you see these animal documentaries, and they're trying to analyze the behavior of these non-human animals with human characteristics, right? And they're
Right.
imposing their ideology, their hierarchical thing. They're imposing behaviors to these animals. It's
Right.
like it doesn't work like that. One of the
Yeah.
things that I think social Darwinists don't don't understand is Darwin to start
Yeah.
to begin with. They don't
For
get it.
sure. Yeah, and I don't think it was some kind of Darwinian conspiracy to write the Origin of Species that way. I just think that like that's the world he lived in, and that's the way he saw it, and he didn't necessarily challenge the assumptions of the political economic life of his society. I mean, he was in the Galapagos Islands like by himself. With
Yeah, right on.
he wasn't even in a society, so it makes sense that he would think that way. But like, it's Adam Smith was the same way. It was like, let me naturalize this process that is actually unnatural. It's in
Yeah,
some way as like a next step in human evolution.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and evolution is all about random mutations, and if they work, they get transmitted, and but it's
Right.
mostly random shit. Nothing to do with societies.
Well,
We shape them, we
right.
organize them, we influence on them actively, not just as individuals, but collectively. Mostly, which is the most powerful tool to influence a society
Right.
is collectively. I mean, me as a guy can go out in the street and start shouting and screaming, and nothing's gonna change. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So, what do you think about do you have any sense of you see a lot of the protests going on in the United States, and like, do you have a sense that like these protests will A, have an influence on our upcoming election, and B, will they have an influence in actually addressing any of the problems?
I mean, they've accomplished what protests are supposed to accomplish already, like changing the
Hmm.
discourse and centering the discourse around them, which is what
Hmm.
protests are for. So the public opinion turns their eye into an issue.
Right.
Successfully changing, it's a collective effort that is going to take a little bit longer. I would say dual power structures. I think the from what I understand, it was the Black Panther Party that really had a really good grasp on what can be done in the United States to change them. And they
Right.
practiced a lot of dual power structures, food banks, education, games for children, even daycare and whatnot, which I think it's basic. But I think they have accomplished a lot already. There's this discourse about the police brutality, and along with police brutality, there's a lot of discourse about around racism. There's a lot of discourse about the legitimacy of the system itself that I think it's very valuable. But then
Right.
again, how is this translating into the public discourse, and how the reactionary forces are what measures are they putting out, to change the dialogue back in their favor? That's something
Yeah.
we need to keep pushing. But I think so far
Yeah.
so good. What are your thoughts?
Well, I remember when the George Floyd protests first started, I noticed a lot of liberals buying like Ibram Kendi's book and watching documentaries on like trying to educate themselves on the plight of African American people and try to understand how their history has led them to this point. And that was a positive development. But I also felt that with conservatives or people who didn't support Black Lives Matter, they very quickly found out how serious this shit was, because a lot of them came out and were just sort of like, all lives matter. And there were certainly plenty of people saying that shit, but like they were getting slammed, And so a lot of your average conservatives, I feel, quieted down initially. But I feel like the problem is that, you know, that initial outburst of support doesn't always maintain itself as something like a protest sort of drags on over time. And people start to liberals start to look for excuses not to support it fully, and conservatives become bolder in their reaction toward the protest movement. And so now we have our police is more fascist than openly fascist than we've ever seen. I mean, there's not even a show of being friendly or preserve and protect. Like there's not even a show of it anymore. They're just like out there just slamming, beating people up, throwing them in vans. And
Yeah,
I worry.
it's not
Yeah,
like it's not like they're out there trying to save face. They don't give a fuck,
they
right?
don't even care anymore. Like there were videos of them kneeling in the first weeks of the protests going viral.
I remember.
You don't see that anymore.
Nope.
You don't see that anywhere.
I think everybody's cornered. This is a little bit of a, I would say it's a little bit of a symptom of a disease that's coming from. I think the United States is ripe for a downfall. Basically, I mean, it had its time, but I feel like it's going down slowly. It may come up and down, but it has all the signs of decadence from my point of view, seeing from the outside in.
Hmm.
It's all the signs of a decadent empire that is falling apart by the seams, probably because of the crisis of capitalism, which are destroying the economy. All that fake money that's been printed in Wall Street and whatnot, that's
Yeah.
coming home to roost, and then there's nobody there to pay for it because everybody has outsourced all of the jobs to poorer countries, and then they don't have the military power is there, but everybody's catching up with the military aspect, and it's coming to a point where it's like the United States versus everybody else. And I think at this point, it looks like it's falling apart, to be honest. But I don't know. How do you see it from there?
I feel it falling apart. Just in the even just with the quarantine, just sort of being like unable to travel and like, I mean, I was in a band for many years and we would travel all over the country. I have friends in all the states, and that's a big help part. That's a big part of like unifying a country is like for people to be able to just interact with each other, meet each other, have friends in different parts of the country. And now because of the pandemic, all of my real friends have just been reduced to like internet personalities.
Right.
And propaganda machines, which I'm a propaganda machine online too, but at sometimes I try to be more thoughtful with what I write because I don't want to just be uh, like doing free labor on Twitter, and
I
it's
hear you.
just, I think that has, it's going to be hard for those of us who want to have unity and who want to, be together. It's hard for us to like maintain this as one country when we can't actually share spaces with people around the country.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about this balkanization that everybody's talking about? Could you
Mm.
explain it to us?
Well, we've had a few. We've had some balkanization, some near balkanizations. When the United States was founded, they used to call it. They used to use the plural. So you'd say that the United States are engaged in whatever. You wouldn't say the United States is a country. You'd say the United States are.
Yeah, there are a
Um,
bunch of states which are united.
Right. Exactly. And there was a rebellion during George Washington's presidency up in Massachusetts, I think. There were a lot of rebellions actually in the first years of the country. That's one of the reasons why they created a president. And then there was a attempted secession in New England during the War of 1812. There was a attempt at secession in 1833 on the southern states. Then there was another attempt at secession in 1860, which is resulted in the Civil War, the American Civil War. And I think I would call that a civil war because I guess if you don't call that a civil war,
Yeah.
then maybe that term is just useless, which
Yeah,
it
that
probably
that
is.
was that was a proper civil war. It's just that ours is characterized like that, but it doesn't qualify.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we had the Civil War, and then after the Civil War, that was really when they changed the United States is. That's when people started thinking of it as one country. A lot of it had to do with the power grabs that Lincoln did. I mean, he brought so much power into the central apparatus of government that I sound like a Republican here, but states' rights were, unfortunately states' rights became the clarion call of every racist and segregationist in
Right.
the history of the country. But I do believe in more local autonomy and more,
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely. The more governments are downsized, not in scale of the government body, but in scale of their scope, of their territorial scope. The more
yeah,
local the government is, the more in touch it is with the communities.
yeah.
So it's
So if
it's a no brainer kind
yeah,
of.
so you have this United States that views itself as one country that doesn't have that slow year by year less local autonomy, and so they, as one country with all their resources pooled in one place, the people in Washington are like, let's go there, let's fight there, let's send our military there, let's trade there, let's exploit that, and that's an empire. If you had a balkanization take place in the United States, and then you'd have like a continent that had to contend with where we'd actually have to contend with each other's interests and power, and we wouldn't have the collective sort of resources. We wouldn't have that big pile of capital in Washington that could just sort of dictate, where to go and what to do. So I don't necessarily advocate for balkanization. I don't know why you would advocate for balkanization. I would more say, like, realistically, it's definitely on the horizon, and you better be ready for it if that's where we're going.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm afraid. It's I think it's part of a process of the U.S. empire breaking down. And internationally, to be honest, and geopolitically, it would be beautiful, to see that influence fall apart, and all the military bases that the United States has all around the world just be dismantled,
Yeah.
which eventually will happen because there would not be no budget allocation or even geopolitical interest, considering that the country itself seems to be falling apart. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's an impression.
Yeah.
But that's, well, being geopolitically fortunate, it really sucks because many people in those territories are gonna suffer.
Oh,
People are gonna
yeah.
go hungry. People are gonna get killed and shit. And it's not like it's not
Hmm.
happening already, which it is,
Right.
because capitalism and because of the fascistic nature that it's been, increasing in the United States, as
Hmm.
of the state itself. But it really hurts, to see those people suffering even more, considering, for like, as a European, as a Spaniard, I would say, barely European. But as a Spaniard, I would say, like, if I imagine myself moving to the United States, migrating, going there, getting a job, getting a house, and it's like, with no health care, with all that stuff going on, the exploitative culture, all the brainwash, all the stuff, and I would say, no, that sounds like a dangerous place to move, right?
Honestly, I feel that one of the things I often say to people who are very anti, like, racist towards immigrants, I guess, the common talking point is, if the United States is so bad, why would they want to come here? And it's like, actually, you should flip that. And you should say, why would people, like, if you're so desperate that you want to go to the United States where you have, like, barely a chance, what's going on in your country that's so bad? And then you go look, and what happened? Yeah, there's internal stuff. It's not all the United States' fault, but the US is somehow involved paying for some death squads or something that's making these people's lives hell and causing them to have to escape. And their best option is the United States, where they're very uh, likely to be arrested and thrown in a cage, and, as we found out recently, sterilized, and all sorts of gruesome things can happen to them. So if you're willing to risk the flight to the United States and end up in one of those cages, people need to ask, like, what's going on in their countries that's so terrible?
Yeah,
And they don't ask that question, because if they did, they would go, oh my God, look at all that awful American foreign policy and World Bank or IMF something going on here and there that caused this country to fall apart. Now I appreciate that you're concerned about the individual people who are going to suffer in the United States as a result of the breaking up, and
yeah.
that's why we shouldn't talk lightly about
It's
it.
heartbreaking, really.
But yeah, but this happened in Russia too. I mean, when the Soviet Union fell apart, I've spent a lot of time in Russia, and my friends who all came of age in the '90s, they were tough. They're tough. They're tough people. My friends from Russia, because they came
Yes,
of age in a time
yes.
that maybe like what we're about to experience here.
Boris Yeltsin is an absolute piece of shit and should go down in history like the drunk piece of shit that he was.
He was a great volleyball coach, they say. Oh, anyway. Yes, Yeltsin. Problem with Yeltsin is like he he just immediately was like he was so in for the, like, sell Russia off, like,
Mm-hmm.
sell everything off, free market, like, let's get in there, and
Yeah,
Russia was then not ready for that, and it
yeah.
was just such a bad idea
But it
so
was so
quickly.
transparent that Yeltsin didn't give a shit. He was already
Yeah.
fixed in some deal with some dark motherfucker, and he didn't give a shit. He was like,
Yeah.
me, myself, and I, and fuck you all. Toughen up and survive this if you can. And
Right.
it was awful. The Soviet Union should have never fallen. It should have had an internal revolution with anarchist characteristics. I might add, but it
Yeah.
should have never have fallen. It should have evolved into something better. If you know what I'm saying.
It Yeah, I mean, well, the Soviet Union, it's interesting because people think of it as a country. It was really, the Soviet Union was an empire in the sense that it was an empire before the Soviets took control.
Yeah.
And they did not stop, they didn't like break it up or anything like that. They maintained the structure more or less with a few changes. They lost their little strip of land across Manchuria. Um, but like, you don't just stop being an empire because you've put Marxists in control of your government. Like there were, the Lenin may have been ensconced in the Kremlin, but there was like 5 or 6 or maybe even more different smaller factions who saw what was going on in the chaos going on in the 1920s in Russia and were trying to break off and form their own factions. You had a lot of fighting in the Ukraine. You had the whites being supported by the Europeans to fight. You had the blockade. You have all this craziness going on in this very large region, and it's convenient for people to just think of the Soviet Union and just be
Right.
like, the Soviet Union did this, the Soviet Union did that, and you're just
Right.
like, dude, really diverse place,
Yeah.
and yeah,
It was, and in my opinion, historically too big of a country. You cannot have countries that big because you cannot govern them justly to serve the people. You have to rule with an iron fist because it's too many people, too large a territory. It's
yeah.
absurd. And too many chances to have like local officials being corrupt and assholes, even when you're trying to do your best on the top. It's absurd.
There was actually there's actually been quite a bit of political activity going on in the far east of Russia. Different like a communist mayor was elected in Vladivostok, but he was like deposed. So it's interesting. Vladivostok is sort of that far eastern part of Russia, is sort of living its own life. And whenever they do something almost unintentionally that pisses off the Kremlin, it gets crushed, and it's sort of like it leaves them asking the same question the colonists asked who were here in the United States. I would say my ancestors, but I was Italian but at that point. But so my ancestors were in Italy. But they're saying to themselves like, why do we have to be deferential to this government that's located a 9-day train ride from our city in Moscow?
Hmm.
So we may, I mean, I think Putin had gotten things pretty under control in Russia, but in his later years, in the most recent chapters of his life, it's you certainly meet a lot of people in Russia who are saying things have gotten bad, economic inequality is worse, Putin is over the hill, and we don't know what's coming. We're worried a revolution is going to happen again in Russia.
Yeah, of
You know,
course, of course, of course. It's very complex. The whole Soviet Union slash Russia, Russia itself, as you said, north to south, east to west, different country,
yeah,
different country. Like it's not like regional differences; they're really different, and ethnical,
yeah,
cultural. There are like unsolvable if you are looking to have a let's say a very monolithic type of country, but as a federation, which it is
right.
the Russian Federation of it's a federation of different states, and kind of works, kind of considering
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you've got the other thing you got to think is like, you know, okay, let's say you're Uzbekistan and you're like, we're gonna be in the Soviet Union because uh, it's better for us to have that wall around our country that keeps the United States and Europe out, because as soon as the Soviet Union fell and all those countries became individual countries, like some of those countries, Americans started building bases there. Then you got Afghanistan, you've got Pakistan, you've got the Middle East, you've got Eastern Europe, Poland. I mean, Americans are all over surrounding Russia now. So it sort of showed you, there was a benefit there to having the Soviet sphere of influence. It protected your country to some degree from becoming, just another, I guess, open field for McDonald's and
Yeah.
and all that life, and American air bases and U.S. military presence.
Yeah. Yeah. The Cold War, the whole Cold War it was like a raging, spiral of nonsense. To be honest, geopolitically, it was a disaster for the 20th century. The whole Cold War, this it was this. What was the name of the president? The one who threw the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima and
Truman.
Nagasaki. Truman, right? Was the one who started that shit, right?
Yeah, more or less, it was under his administration that the policy of containment, which was like, okay, we're not gonna, everyone's tired of war. We're not gonna blow up the commies, but we can contain communism and hope that by depriving it of access to markets and by placing a economic and reputational cost for dealing with any communist countries, like we can prevent the Soviet Union from having like a decent shot at being part of the world.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it was absurd. Like the Soviet Union's last interest was to get it all imperial and shit. They had to, get their shit together. Manage their own economy. But no, they got all paranoid and shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, Lenin gave up land. He gave up a huge piece of land about a year. What was it? No, they took power in 1918 in November. And then by January, they had signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with the Germans, and Lenin gave up like a huge amount of land to the Germans. That land was later reclaimed, but Lenin was basically saying, if the Germans chase us in St. Petersburg, we'll go to Moscow, which is what he ended up doing. And if they come to Moscow, we'll go to Yekaterinburg, and we'll keep going further east, and we'll keep the flame of the revolution burning wherever we go. So he wasn't, married to this one specific territory or land. I mean, he was an international guy, right? He spent so much time living in Switzerland. I don't think he had a specific and England. So
yeah. It was absurd to start the Cold War in the first place, and that was the time where the McCarthy shit happened, right? Or was it later?
McCarthyism was really in the 1950s.
50s, right?
And people remember McCarthy, but they don't realize that Richard Nixon was also a person who really built his career fighting communism, denouncing communists, getting communists fired. He, as a new congressman, so his first term is in Congress, he's a young guy. People had never heard of him. He actually interrogated this State Department guy named Alger Hiss and got him fired and put in jail. And that's how Nixon became famous, actually.
Yeah, by just yelling, crying wolf all the time, right? Communist, right. Communist, communist.
Yeah.
Communist.
And when he... and when Nixon ran for...
Sorry, I got it wrong. Yeah. Communist. Keep going.
Okay. And when Nixon ran for president in 1960, his opponent, JFK, went out of his way to build his campaign on denouncing communism and being hawkish against communists so that he could beat Richard Nixon, because he knew Richard Nixon, everybody saw him, they say attack your opponent's strength. Well, Nixon's strength was anti-communism. So Kennedy out-ancommed him. Like he outdid, not ancom, anti-com.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then what's the result? The Bay of Pigs invasion, which was a failure, the invasion
Oh
of
yeah.
Cuba, which he was obsessed, Kennedy was obsessed with overthrowing Castro. And then after that, the Soviets started sending missiles to Cuba, and Kennedy nearly started World War III by blockading the Caribbean so that the Soviets couldn't bring their missiles. It's the thing he's most loved for. His biggest accomplishment was stopping the Soviets from putting missiles in Cuba.
It,
But yeah,
it is amazing that he got like Kennedy got the good PR. Like he was so good. It's like motherfucker, that's a piece of shit of a president, right?
Bill Clinton said, according to Dick Morris, who was Bill Clinton's advisor, a super right wing guy that Clinton hired to help him win Republicans over. This guy, Dick Morris, said that Bill Clinton once asked him if I could. Bill Clinton idolized Kennedy, so that should tell you a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, if I could meet JFK, I'd just have one question: how did he do it? And he meant how did he have so much sex without getting caught?
Of course. Of course.
And that's, again, that shows you, right? The media was very nice to him, and they didn't report on his liaisons until after he was dead, and they didn't point out his fairly conservative views,
Yeah.
because he was Camelot. It was Camelot.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he met Harvey Weinstein, and then he figured out how he did it.
Yeah, Kennedy. I mean, Clinton. He got away with it a lot if you think about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh damn it. It's just this, it feels like a United States political system is plagued with these heavily corrupt, heavily, class dependent, very the minions of the 1% basically, and there is no actual choice, no matter which of those who are quote unquote electable, right? But I was very interested that you talked about the Green Party and third party options. Well, you talked about third party options. I just saw
Right.
this. I just saw this stream with non-compete American Johnson.
Yeah,
They did
yeah.
with the people from the Green Party, and they seem to have like a very progressive platform. I don't know if do you know anything of them? Are they trustworthy? Are they pulling just a stunt to snake
I don't
oil?
really know a lot. I can give you my sort of like layman's impression, which
Yeah,
has just been that they're they're kind of like a safe space for a wider array of ideas by virtue of being a third party. Like there's people who vote libertarian to vote third party who are not libertarians. So they're kind of like a safe space in that sense. But my impression of them is that they do push for some progressive policies, for many progressive policies, and are way more progressive than the actual parties, than the actual two parties. But like, because of the way the system works, if you're pushing really left-wing policies, I'm probably thinking you have no chance. You must not even be close to winning, because if you were close to winning, if you had all the donors and all of the propaganda on your side, you wouldn't be spouting progressive policies, right?
yeah. But the elections are publicly funded, right?
So there's the Supreme Court basically kind of nullified that to basically I forget the case, but there was a case that basically said, you can with certain restrictions, you can basically get money from anywhere you want, as long as you file it the correct way.
Okay, but the ballot system and the way of voting,
Oh,
everything
oh,
is
oh.
Publicly controlled, right? To
Yes.
get guarantees for not, people basically not cheating, right?
Other than the not cheating part, yes, they're publicly funded.
I hear
I
you.
don't know if I want to commit to that.
How
Not
how
cheating.
how do people cheat in the United States? How do you know of any cases of them being caught doing something, or people giving information, whistleblowing or whatnot? Off the top of
I
your head, I don't know.
Well, the one thing I know, the few things I do know about, maybe you want to pull your chat about it for good examples, because it's not an issue I followed heavily. Um, but I know that there, uh, there's a, I know about gerrymandering. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of
Well. Oh
gerrymandering.
yeah.
Okay.
Go for it. Explain it to us more or less. It's like they cheat the zones, right?
Yeah.
They redraw the
Yes.
districts.
Yeah, there was this guy named Elbridge Gerry. He was actually Thomas Jefferson's vice president, but that's not what he's most famous for. He's most famous for uh, carving out his districts in a way that would ensure that he always got elected, or at least his party always got elected. And the districts were carved in such an impractical way. You know, it's just like a worm almost or something, just kind of like snaking around, like just to get every Federalists that he could,
Yeah.
or sorry, Republican, Democratic Republican in those days, the party was that he could. That someone said it looked like a salamander, and they called it a gerrymander,
Okay.
and that's how we continue to have gerrymandering, of districts. And I guess it's fairly easy to do because people don't pay attention to districting and all that kind of stuff unless you're a Democracy Now or like a watchdog or something. So it's pretty. They get away with it pretty easily.
I mean, it came all the way to Spain, so some people are talking about it. Like
Yeah,
I was familiar with the concept, the gerrymandering. I mean, I'm glad that you explained it for all of us, but I heard about it. So there's got to
right.
be someone out there saying, "Yo, this is wrong," right?
Well, you have, and I think it's a lot of consequence of not having having a vibrant local political life, because, people are not in touch with their environments. They're not connected to their political and immediate political environment. So places don't have like as much of an identity anymore. So now you can just kind of like look at a map and go, oh, there's a rich development there. There's a rich development there. There's a rich housing development here. There's wealthy people living there. Let's just carve a district out of where all those wealthy housing developments are, and we'll have a reliably Republican, vote on our hands
Mm-hmm.
for potentially forever. And I think if people like were more in touch with their roots and with their environment, they would have a better sense themselves of like what their district is and like who their people are, instead of these like extrinsic carvings out of territory, just to like suit the needs of whoever.
Yeah, of
you know
any of the competing parties, but you got to have a certain power for it, right? You got to be
yeah,
on a certain board or something that decides the districts in the first place, right? So you have to be
sure.
elected first, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know if you have to be an elected person necessarily to be a part of that process, but
Okay,
I would assume quite a bit are. I just don't think that there's enough of a local civic life for people to notice when these kinds of tricks are happening.
of
They'll
course.
hear about it like later in an NPR like documentary,
After
but
the
sorry,
fact,
too
right?
late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Maybe it's a good. I don't know. Maybe it's a waste of time. One of the things that worry me about the U.S. elections, or any actually electoral processes, from my perspective as a leftist, radical leftist, like all of us here, is that they suck up the air. They take a lot of space. In the discourse, if you know what I'm saying. Like it's really cool to
Hmm.
understand them, and I'm all here for it. But I would say it's useful also to make this little meta comment here
Hmm.
about the elections. Like they take all the media spin, all the news cycles are absorbed by the
Yeah.
campaigns, and at some point it's like people tend to lose a little bit sight, or news cycles become specifically targeted to direct voters towards this or that, which doesn't happen in around election time. And
Sure.
it's something that you can really tell, right? Like these bourgeois elections,
Yeah.
they really suck the air of the politics of what's going on in our societies that is wrong, that we need to fix.
Yeah, I mean, think about what your commenter your in your chat said earlier about Americans being too stupid to vote. It's like the could you be smart enough to vote for president? Like what makes a person how like what makes me capable of first of all, I study the presidency, okay? I study presidents. And do I think that I know enough about Joe Biden and Trump to make an actual educated choice as to like who should be the president? My choice is primarily based on like what Twitter, the bourgeois news cycle, my gut feeling about who looks like they're in better shape or whatever. Like, do I really have the ability to make that decision? No, not really. I don't. But I do. But my entire political life is absorbed by that decision completely. And so I have absolutely, I'm speaking hypothetically, by the way. So I have absolutely no connection to like my local government and my local political life. I don't live a political life. I don't engage in politics. I engage in the Trump show or the Twitter show. And if the presidency was perhaps not a popularly elected position, but one that was elected, like in a parliamentary type system where you elected a prime minister, and that took some of the edge off of that job as like head of state. And like you voted for president by choosing the right person for your local districts, right? Like, so you tried to vote for the best mayor, the best congressperson and senator, and then somewhere in, up there, the majority decided who the prime minister was. It could do something to like reinvigorate local political activity.
Yeah.
But I mean, a parliament too has its problems. So I mean, that's not a great solution either. What we really need are Soviets. We need fucking Soviets.
Yeah, I
You know
agree.
what I mean?
Local councils of people deciding over
Yeah.
their own lives. I mean, you know, it's complicated. I feel like most of these bourgeois electoral processes, you vote more for people, for individuals, so for people with a PR campaign around them, and you vote
Yeah.
more for a brand, the Democratic or Republican or Green or call it, or
Yeah.
Libertarian with McAfee there killing neighbors and shit, and and
Yeah.
it feels like in an ideal electoral process, that I wouldn't vote for brands or people, or I would vote for policies,
Right.
put on paper with a neutral lettering, with no marketing, no no emotional manipulation involved, no bells and whistles, but the actual
Right.
letter of the proposal, and say we're gonna fix this one issue with this one solution, and if it does well for you, you vote for it, and if it doesn't, you vote
Yeah.
for the other thing, whichever, but you vote.
Well,
I don't know. That's
yeah.
referendum probably, but I would say that's the most effective electoral politics I could think about, right?
Well, the problem with the way our system was set up, and I'm going to finish on this because I have some uh, possible future roommates coming over
No
soon to check
worries.
out a room in my
Yeah.
house. But I guess I'll end on this note. I feel that the founders of the country wanted the presidency to be a much more like of an much more of an appointed position than it actually turned out to be. I mean, they created an electoral college where people would actually like delegates would meet and vote on who the president would be, and you wouldn't necessarily know, again, just like the conventions, you wouldn't necessarily know who the president was going to be until the electors finished their deliberations. So the electoral college, which is everyone hates it now, in the original days, it was actually like a deliberative body or like a voting, like shit could happen in the electoral college. They didn't just put lackeys in there who voted for whoever they were told.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was like that's where they were going to choose the person who would preside over the Congresses, which were the Democratic bodies. I liked that. I liked that idea. But the first, almost, it was like 12 years in, this guy named Aaron Burr, who you might know from the Hamilton musical. He's the guy who shot Alexander Hamilton.
Okay.
Uh, he was like, hey, what if I went outside and like campaigned for the job of presidency? What if I actually went to the electors' houses and like gave them pamphlets and knocked on doors and like made speeches? And it was like the dumbest idea, like the most like no brainer idea, right? Like, of course, why shouldn't I go out and like advocate for my own candidacy for something? But it just ruined it. Like it was just like it ruined the whole idea. And then you had like later candidates engaging in pageantry and openly campaigning, and now it's just a gigantic circus. So I feel like the way they intended the office to be just like immediately got ruined. Like within the first like 12 years, it was just over, and it was a total like direct line from those early elections all the way to the circuses of today, and it just never abated. It never like it never like pulled back from that. It just always got worse and worse with every election.
Yeah.
And that could be the title of the video. Worse and worse with every election.
That's a very good takeaway, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Worse and worse with every election.
Yeah.
It's not about voting, but per se, it's about how we vote, right? And under which systems we vote. It does. Again, I would say, and I don't know if you agree with me. Just let me know. I won't take much longer from your time, by the way.
Okay.
I would say, once you're here, go. If it doesn't take away a lot of your time, go register, go vote. You do the ballot. Don't worry much more about it, and spend more time organizing than voting. But voting is such a low requirement for most of the people, unless you have to drive, because they've been closing polling stations and whatnot to make it more difficult, the motherfuckers. But that's another case. If you have a poll nearby and you can do it, do it. Why not? But don't let it suck up the air, and let's keep an eye on the revolutionary processes, which is way more interesting in a way, right?
Absolutely. And I intend to vote. And I actually don't know who I'm going to vote for yet, but I intend to vote, and I will vote. I always do. But I vote, rolling my eyes.
Yeah. Like this. Oh,
yeah. I'm like,
the smell of puke in the bus.
they always say, we they get mad when people say lesser of two evils, and I'm like, which president was not evil?
Right on.
And which candidate? Like when we voted for Obama, we didn't think we were voting for the lesser of two evils, but we were.
Yeah, and in a way, the president is this one guy, and we have to worry about everybody else in a way.
Yeah. So I mean, I just don't romanticize the whole thing. I mean, it's like, I think vote for whoever you want. If you vote for whoever you want, you got no problem with me. Okay. Yep. I know people who voted for Trump. I know people who are going to vote for Biden, who voted for Hillary, third party. All of them are my friends.
Yeah.
Make friends, and talk to people, but like, give them the Marxist, leftist take, and let them know that it's like, it's not so crazy,
Right on.
It's basic sense.
These are the visible hands that will help you out when you're in need.
That's right. This is the visible hand, right?
Right.
Come on, comrade.
Right on. You know the drill.
Come with us.
You know the drill.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming on my quote unquote show, on my stream. And it was so good to hang out with you. I won't take much longer, considering you have stuff to do. I have a music video to cut as well. I got yeah, and nice. A few songs to come up with, making a soundtrack for a movie and some other stuff. Like,
okay,
it doesn't have to be like a show. We're just hanging out, and it would. I learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna tell to the people in the chat. I'm gonna leave when I put this on YouTube, I'm gonna leave the link to to your YouTube channel, which is fantastic, from which I learn a lot of stuff as well. Thank you so much for putting up all of those videos and
Sure.
tweeting all the good tweets. I learn a lot from you, and I'm so glad to be hanging out with you, even through a camera, phone, and whatever. But
Yeah.
so good to hang out with you.
It's fantastic. And I'm so happy that you put out that tweet asking, because I'm always looking for places to hang in and to do shows like this and chat on stream. I'll be streaming this weekend. We're going to be, I'm talking to Chris Richardson, and we're going to be talking about elections again, but he's a presidential, I guess you could say, scholar. So he actually knows more than me, which is great because he makes me look dumb. So if you want to see me look dumb, watch me talk to Chris.
I don't see a way in the universe in which you look dumb, to be honest. You're amazing through and through. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Javi.
Let's do this more often.
I will absolutely come here anytime.
Yeah,
anytime.
That's great. That's great. I'm counting on you.
Absolutely, yeah. There's so much, and like, there's so much more like community I need with leftists, especially because like this month I've been doing this video about Ronald Reagan, and I put this tweet out. I guess the algorithm destroyed it because nobody responded to it, but I was like, can some leftist somewhere talk to me, because I've been reading about Reagan so much that I'm like really I'm just in a dark place right now.
Palette cleanser.
Yeah. Like, I need somebody to tell me it's okay, and like,
Shit, I didn't catch it. Otherwise I would have slide in my DMs anytime. You know the drill.
Right on.
I'm here for you. I'm here with you.
That's the way it should be.
So thank you so much for coming, and go tend to your life stuff, and let's do this more often. Much love,
right,
comrade. Mwah.
Much love.
Mwah.
All right. Peace and love.
You know the drill.
All right. See ya.
So it was so good. So many levels of good to have Queer POTUS with us on the chat, and so much fun, good people. You've seen this. You've seen it. You've witnessed this. I'd like to point out that the Matrons militia has made a very couple of really good comments. Because there's one party, the party of capital, under bourgeois elections, definitely one party which is capital. They own the shit, and they want to let you know. The trick is, they own the shit because that says so in a paper. But who works the shit? We work the shit, right? So we take over, motherfuckers. Let's do it like that, right? So, and about the voter suppression and everything, in the primaries, and, the system when the elections happen. Shit is gonna hit the fan. Shit keeps hitting the fan all the time. We're all covered in shit up to our ankles or to our knees, and we're going to be up to our shoulders. Just be prepared, okay? Because shit is going to happen, and it's not going to catch us unprepared, okay? We're going to be here. We're going to be prepared, and we're going to continue. And as for me, I'll be taking care of... I got a lot of stuff on my plate right now. That's why I'm streaming so much. But I'll be looking to make a couple of new scripts soon, and we still have pending the part 2 of our revolution part, in which I'm gonna try and play the rest of that documentary we played the other day, and it's gonna be fun.